Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's time. It's the playoff edition, a mock draft playoff edition with the Draft Dodgers. And we're back again. Thanks for being here with us. My name's Dom C. My partner is Tigo, who will be with us shortly. And we are the Draft Dodgers. We're here tonight, a special edition, playoff edition, mock draft style. We're going to shoot through our first round with no trades and kind of take the role of the GM in this thing. So this is a what would we do mock draft. A lot of fun, a good exercise. We know that our top 18 teams are in place, so let's see what it would look like if there were no trades. Obviously, we know there's going to be trades, but there's only so many moving and shaking you can do. Sometimes it's nice to just get back to basics and strip it down to the simplest form and just mock and see what players fit these teams. So without further ado, let me bring up my esteemed colleague, Tigo. How are you, bud?
Doing great, man. Finally starting to be on the up and up from my plague that I've had over the last 2 weeks. And,
oh, man.
Playoffs are here and we know what the first 18 teams are, like you said. And it's just now we can start painting a much, much better picture. And the fun part of the draft is the top half of the draft. And we've got those guys in set. So let's have some fun.
And as I told the viewers or the listeners, this is going to be a one round. What would we do if we were the GMs? How would we play this out? A flip of the coin before the show gave me the odd number. So I'm going to be picking with all the odd number teams. Tigo's going to be picking with all the even number teams. But before we do that, let me first just remind everyone, if you haven't done so yet, please like, subscribe, follow to the channel. It's Project Prospect with Dom C on YouTube. Share the videos on your social medias. Like it, comment. We're always open to all that stuff. It really helps out the YouTube algorithm and would do us a world of good. What do you think, Tigo?
Absolutely. Help us beat the YouTube algorithm. Hit the like button. Leave your sacrifice in the comment section below to the algorithm gods. You know what to do.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and bring this up, and we're going to use the PFF mock draft simulator, which I happen to have grown to like a lot this year. So I'm up first, and I have the odds, and Chicago's in a precarious situation. No new head coach, definitely a new offense coordinator, definitely a new defensive coordinator, definitely needs some weapons, has two very viable high capital picks in pick 1 and pick 9. The big question is does Chicago stay with Justin Fields, or do they decide to reset the rookie quarterback salary scale and dip back? So Tigo and I think differently of this, but I'm pretty set in what I'm going to do here. And for the first pick, Chicago is going to reset that quarterback salary scale, and they're going to take what I think is the best quarterback in this draft in Caleb Williams. Listen, here's an opportunity for them to, like I said, not only reset the salary cap with a rookie quarterback deal, but really bring a guy in with a new offensive coordinator so they can learn and run together, and hopefully, for Eberflus's sake, save his job, right? Because he went 3-14 and then 7-10, so he's going to have to produce this year to really stick around. Ryan Poles is going to have a lot of options. I'm sure a lot of people are going to come. The phone's going to ring in. The doors are going to be knocking. People are going to want to get up there and get to that first selection so they can choose their quarterback of choice. But for now, with no trades, Caleb Williams is going to be the future of the Chicago Bears, and that would leave you up, Tigo, with the Washington Commandskins.
Yes. Now, to be clear, before I get yelled at in the comments, I don't think that Chicago should stay with Justin Fields. The problem that I have is I don't see Eberflus saving his job, even with the drafting of Caleb Williams. And now you're talking about this is the third quarterback in the last however many years that Chicago has taken in the first round and then fired their head coach year one. They did it to Justin Fields. They did it to Mitch Trubisky. Like, if Poles' decision is to move on from Justin Fields, which I think is the right decision, you should have also moved on from Eberflus. Keeping him is the thing that throws a wrench into my opinion on what the Bears might do. That being said,
fair argument. That's a fair
yeah.
argument.
Again,
I can't disagree with it, but
yeah. And again, I think it's the right move. Caleb Williams is an excellent quarterback. I have him as quarterback too. And as the Washington Commanders picking here at number 2, I'm jumping for joy because even though I am a Sam Howell, like I really, really like Sam Howell, I think that with the tools and with the things that are going on in Washington, they're going to want the pedigree that comes with a first round quarterback. And I just think your grade for Drake May is inevitably going to be higher than the grade that you have for Sam Howell. And you can probably trade Sam Howell for a good, like a 4th round pick, a 5th round pick, or something. I think he showed enough for a team to be like, hey, this is an interesting young piece to develop. And then you got to take Drake May, who I have as quarterback 1, a rehash of last year. QB1 goes at number 2, just like it went last year. And you now have to pick for the New England Patriots with new head coach Gerard Mayo. They didn't even interview anybody. They said, Bill, you're out. Your heir apparent was already in the building. What's Mayo doing with his first pick as a head coach of the New England Patriots? That sounds weird.
Yeah, interesting scenario to say the least. I mean, I think everyone thought that once Vrabel got canned from Tennessee and Bill retired from New England, that was just going to be a perfect marriage. But suffice to say, we don't know anything. And from what I understand, that it was already written into his contract that he would be the successor to Bill Belichick. So good on Gerard Mayo. I'm happy to see a young guy. I think he's going to be the youngest head coach in the league.
Yep. He is 1 month younger than Sean McVay.
Yeah, how about that? So should be an interesting situation. I mean, listen, he's got a roster that's void of talent from top to bottom, right?
Yep.
Definitely got some good defensive pieces in New England. I really like, they got Christian Gonzalez, who I think has the makings of a cornerback 1 of the future.
Stud.
Their pass rush, as long as they bring everyone back, should be sufficient. Like, I know Josh Uche is a free agent. And oh my God, why can't I think who's their big stud player there who got hurt last year? Help me, Tigo.
Judon.
Yeah. Judon comes back healthy. I mean, you got some pieces on the defense that should be suffice. How are we going to fix the offense, which is just, like I said, completely void of talent? Listen, I think this is going to be a rebuilding. Obviously, it has to be a rebuild. I mean, they won 3 games. But I think they have a chance to kind of do this the right way. And I know this is going to be against the norm here. So New England fans, if you're in the chat, don't kill me. I see the perfect scenario for New England, considering all the issues and all the growth and the complete turnover of personnel that they're going to have on offense. I don't know if taking a rookie quarterback and throwing him into the fire is going to be the best case scenario. If I'm the GM, whoever the new GM is in New England, I'm going to look to bring somebody in as a bridge, veteran guy. Still take a young quarterback, but maybe not here at 3. Bring a bridge guy in, hand him the reins while you build the talent back up that is kind of just been depleted. And I'm going to go ahead and take my favorite player in this entire draft, and that's Marvin Harrison Jr. There's nothing Marvin Harrison Jr. can't do well. He's your true alpha wide receiver, an absolute weapon, wins at all 3 levels of the field, and he's going to be a mainstay in New England for many, many years to come. We have high capital in the 2nd round. There's some quarterbacks that I'm expecting to, or that there's some of those later round guys who I think have a chance. But for me to pass on a talent like Marvin Harrison, when your best wide receiver is arguably Juju Smith-Schuster, it would be criminal. So Marvin Harrison, welcome to New England.
Yeah, it's an interesting pick because 3 might be a selling point, for a team to want to come up to get a quarterback. Obviously, we're not doing trades in this mock drafts, but 3, I think accumulating as many picks as possible for New England makes a ton of sense. And I think you're right. Throwing a young quarterback to the Wolves with not a single weapon that's worth anything,
Mhm.
in New England just isn't the right move that makes sense, especially with guys that are going to come out that, you can sell a fan base of like, hey, he's a bridge quarterback while we get things going and, isn't going to win you a ton of games.
Yeah.
Your Jimmy G's going to sneak free and he's not going to win you a ton of games, but he's a quarterback. You can play him. He's better than Mac Jones. I'm picking here for the Arizona Cardinals, and the Arizona Cardinals are such an interesting team because when you're looking at picking for them, you just don't know what they're going to do. So it's hard to try to be realistic here. The great part of this mock is that we're not trying to guess what these teams are going to do. We're doing what we would do,
Yeah.
which is awesome, which makes my job a lot easier, which is just you take Malik Neighbors. Malik Neighbors, if it wasn't for the fact that Marvin Harrison Jr. is so freaking good, he's wide receiver 1 in a league of his own. I think tier 1 is Marvin Harrison Jr. Tier 2 is Malik Neighbors by himself. And then you have these tier 3 of wide receivers. And don't get me wrong, I love a lot of the wide receivers in this class, but I think you can easily say going back at least 2 years, arguably 3, that Malik Neighbors would be wide receiver 1 in all of those drafts in the past. And if he wasn't going up against what is arguably going to be the best wide receiver in the NFL and Marvin Harrison Jr., he would be absolutely talked about way, way more. And I love Malik Neighbors. And so sending a weapon to Arizona, another team that's kind of devoid of talent when you look at the wide receiver room, Kyler Murray, they seem to be sticking with him in that contract. So let's get him some help on the outside. I really like what they did with Trey McBride and taking him. They've got a tight end of the future, in my opinion. They've got James Conner, who I believe is there for another year with his contract. And they picked up ex-Jet Michael Carter, obviously, and all of that stuff. They've put a lot of assets in the offensive line. Let's just get some weapons there. Malik Neighbors, welcome to Arizona.
Yeah, I agree with the pick. I would make the same pick if I was in Arizona's shoes or in your shoes for that matter. The one thing I will push back on is I think Rome Odunze has a little bit more of an argument to be on that same tier, really pushing for wide receiver 2. That's just my personal opinion. I think
I love Rome. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Rome is the pick that I want for the Jets at 10. Like if I'm the GM, that's the pick that I would make.
Yeah.
If he's available. I love Rome Odunze. I just think people are sleeping on Malik Neighbors just a little bit.
Yeah. Well, and that leaves me up with the LA Chargers, a team in salary cap hell. There's going to be a lot of moving parts before April comes for the Chargers. I think they're $40 million over the cap as it stands right now. They have over $45 million combined due and owing in cap hits between Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. One, maybe both of those guys will be gone. So wide receiver is an option here. They did spend a first rounder last year on Quentin Johnson. So I don't know if they would want to kind of dip back this soon with this high capital in here. And the defense has tons of holes as well. But for me, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to help the offense, right? But I'm not going to help it at the wide receiver position. I'm going to go ahead and take Joe Alt. And I'm gonna put Joe Alt right in at right tackle in place of Trey Pipkins. You have him and you have Christian Darrisaw now as two very young, very capable bookend tackles to protect your prize in Justin Herbert. Helping the running game as well. Something that the new coach is probably going to have to revamp with Austin Eckler not going to be back next year. So I just think that this receiver class is very, very deep. I think they'll be able to, attract or really get their hands on a very good player in the mid-late rounds, but you're not going to find somebody who's as pro-ready in this draft as Joe Alt. So Joe Alt, welcome to Los Angeles, and you're up with the New York Giants.
This is an interesting pick that you just made for the Chargers. I love the idea here. Just protect Justin Herbert, and the best weapon is time. now I'm with the Giants, and the Giants are an interesting team because I think a lot of people are looking at the Giants here and they're saying, okay, the answer is clearly quarterback. But they just pay Daniel Jones. And if you look at the numbers, Daniel Jones is putting up the same numbers as Trevor Lawrence, and no one is calling for the head of Trevor Lawrence. I think the reality is that offensive line is a problem and that wide receiver room is a problem. But when I look at the Giants, and we had this conversation off air when we were just talking about the Giants and them possibly taking an offensive lineman, I was on the team of, if Alt is there, you take Alt. If not, you take Olu, and then you bump Evan Neal inside. And then you brought up a great point. It's a first-round pick in Thomas. It's a first-round pick in Neal. It's a second-round pick in John Michael Schmitz. They have thrown not just like high premium draft picks of the offensive line, but a ton of money at the offensive line. And at a certain point in time, as a GM, you got to tell your head coach, figure it out. Make these guys work.
Yeah.
Because we have to build the rest of the team. I love what they've done with Waller. I love the Jalen Hyatt pick next year that they did last year, but they need a true X. They need a wide receiver one, and that's where I think they should go. And I'm going to do that and take Rome Odunze here, a player that I love. I love this wide receiver, and I'm taking him and I'm setting him there. We saw what Rome can do, especially over the last couple of weeks in, all of the CFP playoff games and both times against Oregon and all this stuff. This kid's a gamer, and he's going to go in there and immediately establish himself as wide receiver one. And I love that for the Giants, because when New York football is good. Let's get a good football player in New York for the Giants.
Yeah, no, I love the player, love the pick, and he's kind of, he offers a little different than what the other wide receivers have. You have Jalen Hyatt, who's just a vertical speed guy right now, right? You have Wan'Dale Robinson, who can work through the slot and handle all the underneath stuff, and Rome as your true, big, possession 50-50 ball kind of receiver. But that's not all he is. He can win at all three levels as well. Like Rome Odunze is a great pick on just about whatever team you place him on. That leaves me up with Tennessee, new head coach. And I mean, they don't have a lot of pieces, right? Maybe they found their quarterback. They got a couple pieces here and there on the defensive side of the ball. But the offense is in shambles, right? I personally don't like a thing about their wide receiver room. Never been a Treylon Burks fan. Still not a Treylon Burks fan. I think Rome Odunze would be a great selection for the Titans. He's not here to take it, so I'm going to go ahead and probably fill what is the biggest hole on the team, and I'm going to lock up their left tackle, hopefully their left tackle of the future, in Olu Fashanu. What they got out of Andre Dillard is awful. That man's just stealing money from the team. So, Olu's going to come in, and Olu's going to probably slide into that left side, and if he can get through some of the deficiencies that he has in regard to his physicality and his, finishing of blocks in the run game and kind of tie together, tighten up some of those fundamentals in the pass blocking that he does, Olu's going to be a tackle in the league for a long time. That leaves you with the Falcons.
Now, the Falcons is going to be a little bit of an interesting pick here. I'm going to have to explain my thought process, because I know a lot of people are going to take a quarterback in this position, and I don't think they do. And the reason for that is because I'm predicting a head coaching hire. I think that ultimately this is where Bill Belichick ends up, is as head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. And the reason I say that is because of all of the head coaching opportunities that are available right now. I think Atlanta, this is going to sound crazy, but I need you to think about it. I think Atlanta is one of the teams, if not the closest team, to a legitimate playoff berth. And what I mean by that is like a competitive playoff berth, because that offensive line is really solid. They've got two excellent wide receivers in Drake London and Kyle Pitts. I'm not calling Kyle Pitts tight end. He's a wide receiver. They've got an excellent running back in Bijan Robinson. They've got great players on that defensive side of the ball. Jesse Bates just made a Pro Bowl, arguably one of the best safeties, if not the best safety in all of football last year. And that's just real. And they've got a ton of assets on the defensive side of the ball and on the offensive side of the ball. And if you're Bill coming in, I don't know if you're going to hand an offense to a rookie this late in your career. So I'm going to assume that Bill Belichick is the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, that he's going to bring in a veteran quarterback, and that they're going to use this pick on the defensive side of the ball. And I am going to take cornerback Nate Wiggins out of Clemson, partnering him up with AJ Terrell. AJ Terrell is such a talented piece, going back to his alma mater and getting Nate Wiggins to play on the other side of him. And now you're talking about Bill Belichick playing the style and the brand of football that he wants, which is a dominant defense and an offense that just keeps you in games with a solid run game, 2 big red zone targets and all of that stuff. And it just makes a ton of sense. But this pick is only being made because I think that's where Bill is going to end up.
Fair enough. I love the pick. I love the fit personally. I think Wiggins in Atlanta would do wonders opposite AJ Terrell and kind of give them, kind of take some pressure off of the pass rush. They'll, by locking them down, you give these guys, give the wide receivers a harder time getting open. You're going to give a better chance for your pass rush to get in there. So lock it down with Nate Wiggins, and that leaves me with the Bears back on the clock. Consensus says if you draft a quarterback, better get him some help. I don't know. By April, listen, there might be a fourth wide receiver that comes up here. Right now, I'm not there with myself. So what I'm going to do is, knowing that we have Eberflus and his 4-man front, is I'm going to go ahead and kind of put somebody opposite of Montez Sweat, somebody who is stout against the run, but he more so is known for how he can get at the passer. Arguably, not even arguably, statistically the best pass rusher in this class. The pass rush win rate is through the roof. Pass rush win rate in true pass sets is even higher. As long as you get past the medicals, which is real, Leatu Latu is going to be the pick here for Chicago Bears. And you line him up next to Montez Sweat, and you got something working right there. You got 2 great cornerbacks in Jalen Johnson and Tyreek Stevenson. You got 2 great edge rushers. You spend a lot of money, and you put a stud Mike linebacker in last year. You got some pieces in there. And you got something really, really brewing in Chicago. So
yeah,
Latu, like I said, this pick is really going to be dependent on what happens with the medical testings at the bowl game combines, all that stuff. So if he passes those and he can get a green light, he's definitely worthy of a top 10 pick.
Oh yeah, the medical retirement is the thing that scares me, obviously, with Latu, sure. But I agree with everything that you said. If he passes a medical, like if you're a football team and he passes your medical examination and you feel comfortable, you're getting one hell of a player. And now defensive coach has got a defensive weapon opposite of Montez Sweat, like you said. And I think another thing that you didn't mention is, if there's any draft to put off getting a wide receiver into the second round, this is the draft to do it. So if you're the Bears, I think this is a great pick. Mm-hmm. The Jets are on the board, and obviously the player, I said it earlier, the player that I wanted to take is not here in Rome Odunze. I think you got to get a weapon for Aaron Rodgers. You got to do all that. But I think the second biggest priority is protecting Aaron Rodgers. And my player 2 for the New York Jets is Talise Fuaga, the offensive tackle out of Oregon State. I think he immediately comes in and he immediately starts at right tackle, and he elevates that whole offensive line. It gives the New York Jets the ability to move, Elijah Vera Tucker over to the left side. It gives them the opportunity to go in free agency and get an offensive tackle if that's the route that they want to do, and keep Elijah Vera Tucker at guard. Whatever it is, this pick has to be wide receiver or offensive line. You got to either get the ball out of Aaron Rodgers' hands faster, or give him more time to give the wide receivers who lack some talent right now on the New York Jets, who aren't named Garrett Wilson, time to get open, Talise Fuaga, welcome to New York.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I mean, I think he's arguably the majority of the people's OT3 in this class. And he's a big boy, and he's the quintessential anti Olufushanu, right? I mean, he's just a menace and a mauler in the run game. Finishes his blocks, with vigor, with ferocity. He's definitely not a perfect prospect. Got some, questions in regards to how he's going to hold up against NFL speed rushers. That's my biggest question. He may ultimately turn out to be a kick-ass Quentin Nelson type guard, but I think you could start him on the right side of the Jets line. I think you can plug and play him and AVT wherever you like them. If you think one of them's better at the other one, whatever, your right side is set.
Yep.
Between those two, however you maneuver those around, it leaves me up with the Vikings. Again, another unique situation, another team that lost Kirk Cousins to the Achilles injury. I just think that there's unfinished business in Minnesota, right? They were a playoff team last year. They got the chops. I think they probably would have been a playoff team this year if not for the injury in Kirk Cousins. And I just don't see that being the swan song for Kirk Cousins. To me, him coming back to Minnesota is kind of a no-brainer.
Yep.
So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to address something on the opposite end of the spectrum for them. And I'm going to take Dallas Turner, who is an, edge rusher that will fit perfectly into that, high pressure, mix them up, blitz game that they're running right now in Minnesota. The skills
Flores
are there.
has those guys flying.
Flores has these guys coming all over the place from every single direction. And to me, I think Dallas Turner fits that mold perfectly. You get him on his 2 feet, you can stand him up. Again, you can move him around the formation a la, what the Jets did with Jermaine Johnson, what Dallas does with Micah Parsons. You can have him, pressure from the middle, and he's got enough chops where, he can still drop off into zone coverage if you need to. Like I said, everything screams quarterback, but for me, I don't think that this team just kind of turns that page from what was a 13-win team last year with all those same pieces back and probably even a little bit better. I think they're going to run it back with Kirk. So I'm banking on bringing Kirk back to at least a 1-year deal and just fortifying that defense with Dallas Turner.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I was waiting for you to make the quarterback pick so that I could say I think Kirk goes back, and then you didn't make the quarterback pick, so I didn't need to say it. But I'm here with Denver at 12, and Denver's a super interesting team because of obviously what we saw happen towards the back end of this year, with all the drama with the Russell Wilson contract and everything like that. Because I thought Russell Wilson wasn't the problem in Denver, and after they restructured the defense started performing way better. And you would have hoped that this marriage between Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos and Sean Payton would have worked out, because that would have freed up this pick to go making the defense better or making the offense better or addressing one of those positions. And I just don't think that that's an option anymore. I think Sean Payton is going to have to go and get a quarterback. And here's the thing. I think Sean Payton is egotistical enough to think that he's going to be able to fix any quarterback. And what I think he's going to want is a young guy to come in and to really he believes can play at a high level. And he's just going to, just operate my offense and be safe. That's all I need you to do. And while there are guys that I have graded higher, the Sean Payton effect is what's affecting this pick. And I'm going to surprise a lot of people. I'm going to take JJ McCarthy here to the Denver Broncos at 12. I think JJ is going to probably have himself talked into that first round conversation, even though I don't necessarily have that grade on him. but the kid is like what, 21? You know, he's going to be 22 by the beginning of next year. He's the youngest quarterback, I believe, in this draft. And
Technically
so
not. Technically not in the draft yet. Still has not.
hasn't declared, but if he declares, I think you're looking at a guy that's going to be like, you know what? Sean Payton is going to love his athleticism and the traits that he has. And I think he's going to say, give me the young kid and then let me try to win in Denver for the next 15 years, like I did in New Orleans,
Mhm.
but we're just running it back with a guy who I think has a little bit more athletic traits. So yeah, surprising pick, JJ McCarthy at 12.
I love JJ McCarthy actually. Probably a little too rich for my blood here, like you, but I understand that there's going to be a team that loves the traits, that falls in love
Yep.
with the traits, and says, listen, you can come in and he's a moldable ball of clay right now, right?
Exactly. And that's the whole reason I made that. Because I think when you look at the other guys, your Bo Nixes, your Jaden Daniels, your Michael Penixes, they're more, these are the type, this is them as who they are as quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And there's not much molding you're going to do in terms of their game. JJ McCarthy is, like you said, dude, I don't even think he's a ball of clay yet. I think he's still in the mud bank up on the side of a river like that. Like he's so raw that you can kind of turn him into whatever you want. And I think that's going to tickle Sean Payton's ego a little bit.
Yeah. And that leaves me up with the Raiders. Again, no coach. Every team I have so far, not every team, but most of them haven't had coaches. But we're going to figure this out. And I don't think we're going to even have to waste too much time here. Jimmy Garoppolo ain't it. Aiden O'Connell ain't it. And the fact that the Heisman Trophy winner, Jaden Daniels, still on the board at this point, probably Raiders weren't expecting him to be on this board here, is, that he's the pick. You're going to figure it out. You're going to use that athleticism. You're going to use that huge arm that he has, and know that you have some weapons already on that team. You have some decent wide receivers. You have a great young tight end. A running game, a running back. If you bring Josh Jacobs back, that can carry down the fort. Good, strong left tackle and Colton Miller. I think that team is set for a rookie quarterback, right? That team can manage with a young kid, and why not get one of the most talented in the draft class in Jaden Daniels? So
Yep.
There's not much to say there. That leaves you up with the New Orleans Saints.
While I am not a Jaden Daniels guy, I like the quarterback pick. I think whoever the new head coach is going to come in, they're going to want to get their guy. And this is Vegas is a team you got to watch up. Might come up for a guy. That's a team you got to keep your eye on.
Well, I think there's a bunch of them, right? I think realistically, the Raiders. I think Minnesota, if they decide that they not bringing Kirk back,
Atlanta,
they can go up. Atlanta can go up. The Giants might. Who knows?
Yeah, if they want to move on from Daniel Jones. Again, there's a lot of these teams that might be in a spot.
New Orleans,
new head coach in Seattle.
New head coach.
You don't like that whole thing. And I'll talk about Seattle when I have my pick with them after obviously the next two picks, because I've got some interesting things that I want to say about them. But New Orleans is such an interesting team because they're bringing back the head coach. Right. They have no intentions to move on from him, which makes no sense. And I think that ultimately means that Derek Carr is safe too. Again, why? Who knows? But I think that ultimately means that he's not going anywhere. And you've got to do something with this team. And I just don't know, because the bill is coming due. They cannot keep pushing the dead cap hit back and back and back and back. And that's exactly what they keep doing. But you know what? I think you've just got to go I think you just go BPA here and you just take Brock Bowers. You recently used a first round pick in Penning on the offensive line. I don't know if you're going to do that again. Ramachek is playing okay. Pete is still there. You got Hurst and Ruiz and McCoy. And so I don't know if you're really going to go on the offensive line room that way. Do you want to take a quarterback here with how much money you're paying Derek Carr? I'm not so sure about it.
Yeah.
I took a serious look at Jerjon Newton here and just plugging him in the middle of the defensive line there, because that would just be an amazing fit, in my opinion. Just go get the quarterback. But you got to go BPA when you're a team that just has this many holes like New Orleans does. And so Brock Bowers is going to the Saints.
Yeah, and listen, Brock Bowers is an offensive weapon what you're going to need, right? Especially if you're assuming Michael Thomas isn't coming back. They're going to need somebody else there to kind of alleviate some of the load off of Chris Olave. So Bowers is a great pick for. I mean, the fit is perfect for New Orleans. So I'm not mad at this. I'm not upset at this at all. I am a little upset because it's probably who I would have targeted here for the Colts.
I know.
Not gonna lie. But I think the Colts are in a unique situation. Again, this is me playing GM, and I'm going to assume they're going to do everything in their power with their young young mobile quarterback with that howitzer on his shoulder to bring Michael Pittman back. So I'm going to assume Michael Pittman's coming back. I loved the college prospect Josh Downs coming out of North Carolina. I thought he played great this year. Yep. So I think your slot is set. So you got Alec Pierce, on the opposite, kind of your Z guy. He's more of a vertical threat and not much, not anything more than that. I think you can upgrade on that, but again, we talked about how deep this class is. I don't know if you have to go ahead and reach if you want to call it a reach, but I think you can fill other holes or other needs first before addressing, in essence, a third option, fourth option if you count the running back, a fourth option on the offense. Pierce does what he does just fine. So we'll address that later on, and we're going to stay on the defensive side of the ball. So I'm torn between two guys. I'm not going to lie. Okay,
don't take my guy.
I really like. I really like what they have. I really like what they have in the cornerback room on the outsides. I think the two young kids, Jones and Juju Brents, I think they're players. I think they're scheme specific. They fit the bill there. Kenny Moore, the slot, I don't know. People say he's arguably one of the best in the league. I've never really seen it from him. So you know what? And I think the cornerbacks are kind of deep. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take Jared Verse for them. Kwity Paye has been kind of a disappointment. He hasn't been able to really get at the quarterback like they hoped he could. I think that if nothing more, it allowed the pick of Jared Verse, even if he's not a full-time starter right from the get-go, which, ultimately he could be, over Samson. What's his name there? Samson Ubukam. I don't know how to say his name, but between those two edge rushers, I think Jared Verse can rotate in really well, and it gives you an option if you choose not to move forward with Kwity Paye, when his 5th year option comes due. Jared Verse does exactly what you're looking at him to do, right? Constant pressure from the outside, strong, powerful, can finish, press the pocket, can finish. A little bit of older of a prospect at 23 coming into the draft, but we've seen that succeed in the likes of Jermaine Johnson. We've seen it firsthand with Jermaine Johnson, what he can do as a 23-year-old, aggressive closer mentality, defensive end from Florida State. I think Jared Verse probably has more pass rush chops than JJ coming out of college. So Jared Verse is going to be the pick here.
Yeah, it's a good fit. You got to start addressing that defensive side. AR is coming back next year, and look at what they were able to do this year with a backup, which is just awesome. Seattle is an interesting team. I'm going to make the pick, explain the pick, and talk about this team in a little bit. I'm taking Cooper DeJean here, and I'm sending him to Seattle. He is not going to be playing cornerback for the Seattle Seahawks. They did just take, obviously, Tariq Woolen, who was really good a couple years ago. They took Devin Witherspoon last year, who's been playing really, really well. Cooper DeJean is coming in to play safety, because that's where I think he's ultimately going to end up in the NFL. And I think Cooper DeJean is going to do an excellent job because I think they're going to be moving on from Jamal Adams, and Quandre Diggs is not getting any younger, and you have to start filling in that secondary. So that's the pick, and there's why the pick. One of the things I did want to talk about Seattle is, I don't know if you heard this, but I thought it was really interesting, and I think it's another one of those why Cooper DeJean makes a little bit of sense for this team, just like the grit. And the thing is, I heard that they basically said, we're moving on from you as a head coach to Pete Carroll the moment that Vrabel became available, because that's who they want to come in. They knew that Pete Carroll was on the outs in terms of like towards the back half of his career. And when Vrabel became available, that's their number one target. And so they basically said, we want you here, but we don't want you as the head coach because we want to bring in Mike Vrabel. And I think that offense is like set. I don't see a hole in that offense. Maybe you upgrade the interior of the offensive line, but you've got 3 really good wide receivers. You got a really good running back. You got a good tight end. You got a good enough quarterback. Start filling in this defense. It was between Cooper DeJean and Jerjon Newton, but they did just trade for Leonard Williams. So for me, start fixing that secondary, because Jamal Adams gave up too many touchdowns this year, and I don't think Cooper DeJean is going to be giving up those touchdowns. And that's my pick.
Yeah, definitely a way that a different view or a different aspect of them what I would have done. Not to, and that's no shade on Cooper DeJean, the prospect, but yeah, listen, your rationale makes sense, so I can't argue with it. I mean, I'm assuming Jamal Adams is gone.
Yep.
I'm going to assume that who else do they have? The Quandre Diggs. I think
Yep.
he's up too, if I'm not mistaken. Julian Love. You can make all that stuff work. So, yeah, Cooper DeJean's a pick, and that leaves me up with Jacksonville.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting, Jacksonville. So, as a GM, again, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that Josh Allen does not even come close to sniffing free agency, and I'm going to lock him up long term. He's probably the best defender on that team.
I'd say best player on that team, if I'm being honest.
Well, you know what? The middle linebacker Olakon has been really freaking good the past couple years. But he's definitely, he definitely affects the game the most. So I'm not letting him get out the board. So I'm torn between a couple different things. I think that they can address the offensive line, and I think there's plenty of guys that fall into this realm that can do it. However, they spent some capital over the past couple years on the offensive line, right? They got Anton Harrison in the first round last year. I think Luke Fortner was a high, they spent high capital on him a couple years ago. So again, the along those same lines, how much premier capital can you devote to the offensive line with leaving all of these other premium positions kind of afloat? So I'm not going to do that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a player who I think is going to, take the NFL by storm. Just what he can do. Height, weight, speed guy. I love him. I love his game. I loved him at LSU. I'm going to take Brian Thomas. We don't know if Calvin Ridley's coming back. He's the question mark. Zay Jones might not be coming back. So the only real viable wide receiver that you have on that team is Christian Kirk, who only has 2 years left. So this is not only a pick that can help you now, but it's also a pick of setting down the pipeline to make sure that all your weapons are intact moving forward. Brian Thomas is going to be the pick. However, they did have like a god awful run blocking unit. So this to me is an ideal spot to move down if somebody wants to move up, for them to move down and maybe target that, pick up some extra capital and target the interior of that line later on. But Brian Thomas is going to be the pick for now.
I love it. Changed my colors to LSU purple because of it. If you guys are avid listeners of the podcast, which you should be, when we did our wide receiver rankings like a month or two ago, I made sure to talk about Brian Thomas. And what did I say back then, Dom? Watch out, because this kid's coming for the first round.
Yeah.
Here he is. I didn't even have to make the pick. You made the pick. Boom. I love this kid. The Bengals, I think, are an easy pick. I don't think you're going to tag or you're going to bring back Williams after moving him from the left side to the right side. And he played better this year on the right side, but it still wasn't great. In an ideal world, you would move Orlando Brown Jr. to the right side, but you kind of like gave him big money and promised him that he would play on the left side. You got to address the offensive line. You have to protect Joe Burrow. He lost him all this season. The only guy that's left that I feel really like comfortable as a first round offensive tackle is JC Latham. I'm not a JC Latham guy personally. I don't necessarily love him as a prospect, but when you're looking at this offensive line, you got to take a shot at it. He's going to play the right tackle. That's what he plays at Alabama. You bring him in, you immediately slide him in there, and you hope that it works out well. Now, even if you bring back Jonah Williams, put one of them at guard. JC Latham, 3 years ago, I guess at this point, played right guard. Like, he can play inside. He's probably going to be a tackle. You can move Jonah Williams. Figure it out. Put guys on the offensive line. Every draft pick should be an offensive lineman if you're the Cincinnati Bengals. The rest of your team is literally built and ready for a Super Bowl. Protect the dang quarterback. Done.
Period. End of sentence.
Done. Period. End of statement. End of draft plan. All of the offensive linemen.
I like JC Latham. I mean, he's the strongest guy in the class. And listen, his floor is that he's going to be a phenomenal guard in the league. And you know what? That's fine too. Like, you try my tackle. If it doesn't work, you move him inside over the next couple of years where you're going to have some holes to fill. So he's a guy that I think makes a lot of sense here, and I love the fit. And leaves me.
Let me say, I like Latham at guard. I don't like him at tackle.
Yeah,
I like him a lot at guard, but I don't know. I feel weird about him at tackle. I don't know if I believe in him at tackle.
Yeah.
I hope he proves me wrong. I hope every one of these kids is a stud, right?
Yeah.
I don't ever want to wish bad about any of them.
No, absolutely. It leaves me up with the Packers. I think there's a bunch of different ways to go here. A tackle makes sense. A defensive back makes a ton of sense, either at the corner or the safety. I think with a guy like Tristan Newton still on the board, I think even that could make sense. You can plug him in opposite of Devontae Wyatt, at your 5 tech and really just cause havoc there. But to me, I think I have to stay with where I think the biggest need is all right. You have Jair Alexander. There's been a lot of grumblings about Jair Alexander that he's pissed the management off, and they might be getting fed up with a lot of his antics. But even outside of that, I think Jair Alexander's a phenomenal player. Even outside of that, there's not much help there, right? There's not much. There's not much more help there. This might be a little too high to take a safety. I think it's a perfect landing spot for Cooper DeJean if he's still on the board, because he can play safety, he can play nickel. Both big needs for the Packers. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lock up Kool-Aid McKinstry. In essence, he's a younger version of what Jair Alexander is. Just lockdown man, cornerback, smooth. Very, very good instincts. Good break on the ball. He's got enough height and length that he's gonna stay on the outside. And listen, you have a lot of more draft capital. They have 2 second-rounders, and I think maybe 2 third-rounders as well. So you're gonna have some opportunity to take some of these guys. To me, Kool-Aid McKinstry's my right now my cornerback 1. I was shuffling him and Wiggins back and forth on the board, but the more tape I watched, the more I settled on the fact that although Kool-Aid might not have the highest ceiling of all the cornerbacks in the draft, actually, I think his teammate from Alabama, Terrion Arnold, might have the highest ceiling, but Kool-Aid's definitely got the highest floor. And you just, I didn't want to I just wanted to simplify it and don't overcomplicate it. And let's just take the best fit for a position of need, and that's Kool-Aid McKinstry.
Yep. I was going to make that pick right here for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I was going to take Kool-Aid McKinstry for exactly what you said. I think he has a higher floor than Terrion Arnold, who might have a much higher ceiling. And I think that I am blanking on his name, head coach in Tampa Bay. ex-head
Todd
coach.
Bowles?
Todd Bowles. I think his seat is getting a little bit warm.
He's a playoff team. How can he get a home playoff game?
Yeah, but I think the seat's getting a little warm because you had to luck out with the worst division in the NFL to get in. And I've been watching a lot of Tampa games this year because I had both Rashad White and Chris Godwin on my fantasy team, and that team is not performing all that great. It required a lot of Baker Mayfield antics at the end, and you're a defensive-minded head coach, and the defense isn't all that great right now, in my opinion. You've got things that I'm not saying he's on the hot seat. I'm just saying it's getting warm. Just because you're a playoff team doesn't mean your seat can't be warm. I think McCarthy's seat is warm. If he flames out of the playoffs in round 1, I don't think he keeps his job, It's a thing. That's a real thing. But I think you got to go and address the defensive side of the ball. I think the offense is fine. I think the offensive play calling, needs to be a little bit better. If there was a tight end here, you would obviously take him. If there was a running back here, you would obviously take him. There isn't. This is one of the worst classes if you need a running back or a tight end because the running back class just keeps getting worse with kids going back to school.
Mm-hmm.
You're not taking a wide receiver here. You've got 2 studs, and you're probably bringing Evans back. And Palmer can play, man. Palmer can play. I think you're going to
he's a little too one note. Like I said, he's a go guy. He's a speed. He's a vertical threat.
He's wide receiver 3, right? You focus on Evans and Godwin, and that's a good unit there. I love Jerjon Newton here, but you just took Kalijah Cansey in the first round. Are you really going to go back-to-back interior guys? No. So I'm going to take Terrion Arnold here. I think Terrion Arnold goes right in. He's easily their best cornerback, and you just got to start addressing that secondary because I think that secondary needs some help because it's literally just Winfield Jr., and that's it. Neal isn't playing well. Davis isn't playing well. Dean isn't playing well. Like, none of the guys on that secondary are playing well other than Winfield Jr., who was like safety 2 in my eyes behind only Jesse Bates. Those 2 guys are 1A, 1B. Like, they're insane. But that's it. So get him some help. Terrion Arnold, you're going to Tampa.
Yeah, and 3 consecutive Alabama players. 18, 19, 20. How about that? And
look at that.
Brings me on the clock for Arizona, and they are going to run up to the podium and take Johnny Newton, who's still on the board, fits a hole on their defense. He's my 6th overall ranked player in the entire draft. I have him as the highest rated defender in this class. I think he's special. I agree. In one-on-one situations, very reminiscent, maybe not his body type, but just his play style to me, very reminiscent of Quentin Williams, and how he sets up and just blows by with his speed and aggression and get off the line and blows by the interior offensive lineman. Johnny Newton's a home run pick here for the Cardinals 21. There's not much more to say.
Nope. It really isn't. I love the fit and I love the pick here. The fact that he's still available here is insane if we're being truly like honest about it. Now, this is an interesting spot for the Rams because you're staring down the barrel of Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr., and we don't know how much longer Stafford is going to be there. I just have a problem of drafting a quarterback at their age at like 25 to have them sit.
Yeah.
I don't believe in that. If you're drafting a kid at
Bo's a little bit younger. Bo will be 23 at the time of the draft.
Yeah.
Not that that matters, but
again, I just have a little bit of an inkling there. And they need help on the offensive line. And you're looking at Amarius Mims, a guy with a ton of talent. But they don't need help at right tackle. And I don't know how confident you feel about moving either Havenstein to the left side, which at 31, I don't know if that's the best option, or if you feel comfortable moving Amarius Mims to the left side. I don't like either one of those options. And so for me, I'm really looking at, are you going to take Braylon Trice here, or are you going to take Bo Nix here if you're the Los Angeles Rams? It's hard.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with either one. I mean, listen, Braylon Trice would be your big power rusher opposite of oh my God, what's his name? Byron, help me out here.
Byron. Oh my God, why can't I remember his name?
I can't either. He went in the second round last
Byron
year.
Young. Jesus.
Byron Young. Good Lord. So he's he's your speed guy, and then you get your power rush guy. But like I hear you loud and clear. Like, to me, this is a perfect situation to kind of pipeline what you got in Stafford. I don't think Stafford has too much time left in the belt. So
Yeah, I'm
tough
going to take
pick
Bo
for
Nix
you.
here. I'm going to take Bo Nix here. I love Bo Nix. Keep him on the West Coast. He's the guy that I would have taken if I was picking for, if I was taking a quarterback, like for the Raiders, I would have taken Bo Nix there. I think I have Bo Nix rated higher than Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
And I think he can come in. I think he can operate that offense, and it just gives you some flexibility. Stafford can't seem to stay healthy, so Bo Nix can come in, can operate that offense. And the reality is this is the best quarterback draft we've had in a while.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of really good prospects in this class, and so I'm just going to take Bo Nix.
Yeah. It makes sense. And more so, I think Bo Nix, like you said, can fit in. I mean, this is the kind of offense that he's going to really excel in. Yeah, absolutely. So those me on the clock with Pittsburgh. I'm tempted to pair up Broderick Jones with Armarius Mims here, and that would be nice.
Ex teammates.
Yeah, ex teammates and
very similar draft profiles.
Yeah, I think Mims is a little bit more athletic than Jones personally, but
I said similar, not same.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know what to do here. I'm torn.
If I can interject just a little bit, as a friend of someone who covers the Patriots for a local news outlet,
The
in
Steelers?
Pittsburgh. Yeah. Why did I say the Patriots?
Yeah,
I meant to say Pittsburgh. I thought Pittsburgh, that covers Pittsburgh, the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh. They seem to be all in on a DB.
Yeah, but you know what? So here, let me talk through my rationale. Okay, Mims makes a ton of sense. All right, they need a right tackle, right? You're going to move Broderick over to the left side. You need a right tackle. Okay, so to me, Mims makes a lot of sense. Or any if it's not Mims, one of these other tackles makes sense. Okay, DB makes sense as well. All right, but I think that you're still going to be able to plug a good cornerback in. Later on, even if you go in the second round, a guy like Josh Newton or a guy like TJ Tampa or a guy like Quinyon Mitchell maybe might still be there. There's going to be some DB depth. The third option, and the option that I think I'm going to go to, is to once and for all fortify the interior of this offensive line. I'm going to take Jackson Powers Johnson, the center, out of Oregon. Some might say this is a little too rich for him, but there's the cream of the crop always rises in the center position, right? We've seen guys like Linderbaum go in this area. We've seen guys like Tittman and John Michael Schmitz go early in the second round. Now, I'd have to say, realistically, and if I'm being honest, I think Jackson Powers Johnson is closer to a Linderbaum prospect than he is John Michael Schmitz or Tittman. I think he's a better prospect coming out. He's stout. He's aggressive. He's got like great handwork. He's got vice grips for hands. Strong in the run, which is exactly what they need. To me, I'm going to hope and pray that I find a right tackle later in the draft, but I don't want to miss out on what could be a really special player here for Pittsburgh and Jackson Powers Johnson.
I love the pick. I think this is a reach for JPJ. I love JPJ. We just did our interior offensive lineman, and I spent 15 minutes raving about JPJ. And I think my friend would love this pick because me and him, we love centers. We've been talking about centers for the last couple of years. He yelled at me on the phone last year after the draft when we drafted the center, and they didn't in the Pittsburgh Steelers because we took Tittman, and then obviously they didn't take a center because we have been wanting a center since Creed Humphreys. I just think it's a little bit rich, in my opinion. I love the pick. I love the fit. I love JPJ, but that's that. Now, I think the Miami Dolphins pick is relatively simple here. it's Amarius Mims. You need the offensive line help.
They just signed Austin Jackson long term to play right tackle.
Yeah, but you're gonna lose Hunt. You're gonna lose Hunt. Armstead hasn't been able to give you a fully healthy season. Eichenberg is a travesty, and I'm not saying that Mims is gonna play center, but like you need offensive linemen, period, not just tackles. You need offensive linemen, period, and you can find a place to play Armstead, Jackson, and Mims all on the offensive line at a certain point in time, even if that means moving Mims into right guard for a year or two, while you wait for Armstead to kick it
Makes
off.
sense. I get it.
That offense operates quickly and efficiently, and right now the biggest thing holding them back is the offensive line. They don't really have a hole anywhere else. They can't move on from Xavier and Howard yet because that contract is insane. And there's not really a cornerback that I feel comfortable taking here. They don't really need defensive linemen. They don't really need linebackers. They don't really need secondary help at all. I'd love a tight end, but this tight end class sucks. So you just take, I think, one of the better players in the class and you just take Amarius Mims and just figure out a way to play him on the offensive line. Whether it's at guard, whether it's at tackle, you figure it out. Because you know Armstead's going to get hurt. And if we're being honest, you probably know that Jackson's going to get hurt. Like, they haven't been able to stay healthy. That offensive line hasn't been able to stay healthy, which seems like a thing for all of the offensive lines in the NFL recently. Mm-hmm. So just go and take the best offensive lineman. Either that or have a phone conversation with Tom Brady and lose this pick again. So either one works for me.
That leaves me up with the Eagles. And I thought the Eagles pick was going to be a lot easier for me. Yeah, I guess they can go one. You can go a couple different ways, but I'm going to go with what I think is the best player at a position of absolute need, if you ask me. The way that James Bradbury has played this year, and even the decline of Darius Slay, leads me to believe that cornerback is going to be of paramount importance to them. I know they got guys like Keely Ringo, Avonte Maddox, who I think just now kind of just stays home in the slot, if I'm not mistaken. Josh Jobe is there as well, but those guys are just Jags. Go and get yourself a guy. Big, strong, physical. Can play press man. Is very adept in zone, aggressive, great ball skills. The kid from Toledo, Quinyon Mitchell, is going to be the pick for the Eagles.
Love it.
And that leaves you up with the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think you got to go that way. You got to start helping that secondary. I think this is easy. Best wide receiver available.
Okay.
In the class, I know that right now they have Troy Franklin ranked as the best wide receiver available on PFF. I don't know if I agree with that.
Well, their rankings are always cockeyed. I mean, they still have guys that have declared. They haven't updated anything. Emeka Buka's still here.
But he declared, he said he was going back, what, today? I think it was today he said he was going back.
Yesterday.
Yeah. Look, I'm going to take a wide receiver here. It doesn't really matter which. I'm a big fan of Ladd McConkey. I'm going to take Ladd McConkey.
Oof. It's another slot guy, man.
Yeah, you're not wrong. No, I think he can play outside. I just need guys to get open quickly. The offensive line needs help. There's not an offensive lineman that I really love here in there. I just want guys to get open quickly. And so I'm thinking about that offense and how it operates. They've never really used a big X on the outside. Like, that's what Travis Kelce is for. He's going to operate as that role. So I'm just trying to get quick, shifty guys who are going to get open quickly. Yak guys. And that's what I think Ladd McConkey is. He's a guy who's going to get open quickly, and you can operate him in the X. I think that, they have, is it Shakir that's over there? No. Shakir's in Buffalo.
They got,
what's the other one?
God, what's the kid's name? Number 24 he wears.
Yep. Dude, I see him perfectly.
State. Yeah, I can't
see him.
His name either.
I loved him coming out of the draft. Give me a second.
The heck is his name?
What's his name? Doesn't matter.
We know who we're talking about.
Yep. Sky Moore. You've got Sky Moore. You've got Rice, and I like Rice.
You
And
got
what he
Kadarius
did.
Toney.
Eh,
You got Lad McConkey. To me, listen. I like the player. To me, he's a little bit more. He's just redundant on the kind of receivers that you have here. But listen,
but it's working. That the thing is like Rice is the only receiver that worked for them last year. And so if you're telling me that you can get a kind of a player that has a similar skill set to that, like I'm cool with that. Sky Moore is going to operate in the slot. Rice is going to operate as the X. McConkey's going to operate as the Z. And then Travis Kelce is going to operate as Travis Kelce. And that's how I looked at it.
okay, and that's fair. Leaves me up with the Texans.
Yep.
Again, to me, I think this is a no-brainer. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lock up Byron Murphy, the defensive tackle out of Texas. Keep him home for Houston. He's your replacement or soon to be replacement for Malik Collins and Sheldon Rankins, who are both, getting up there long in the tooth. And what he can do from the 3 tech is just silly. I mean, the power and speed that he plays with from the 3 tech position is just absolutely filthy. I think he's going to be a perfect fit in that defense. Byron Murphy, short and sweet. That's the pick.
Yeah. I love it. There's nothing bad that I'm going to say about this pick because there is nothing bad to say about this pick. The Detroit Lions are here on the board at 28. And I think I'm going to take one of my favorite players in this draft. And I'm going to take him and I'm going to play him in a position that I don't want to play him at. But I love this kid. And I think that a lot of teams are going to look at him and they're going to think of him as an interior offensive lineman instead of something else. Never mind.
Okay.
I'm switching. I was going to take Graham Barton. And I was going to play him at left guard.
Okay.
And just have the best offensive line in football.
Makes sense.
Decker, Sewell, Ragnar, Barton, and then Glasgow. Like, that's the best offensive line in all of football. Like, hands down. But I think that this class, you can get a guard later. What you can't get later is Braylon Trice.
Oh, you son of a gun. I was going to take him for Buffalo next.
And so I'm going to take Braylon Trice. Hutchinson has been awesome. Let's get him some help.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get him Braylon Trice. And now you got a piece that you can bump anywhere on that defensive line, and he's just going to work. Just high motor. I love the fit.
He was going to be my Von Miller replacement in Buffalo with this next pick. I think it makes so much sense. But I digress, and now I have to kind of pivot. The good thing is that Buffalo has a bunch of different needs and different positional positions that you can kind of address. Everybody loves to slot wide receivers into Buffalo. I don't think that that's a bad idea. I think a guy, obviously there's guys like Troy Franklin that can move and shake. And he's, a little kind of very similar to what Gabe Davis is for them right now. And that might sound disrespectful to Troy Franklin because I think he's a little bit better than Gabe Davis. I love Tez Walker. Adonai Mitchell is kind of that big, tall, vertical threat, red zone weapon that could really help as well. But I'm looking at that safety room, right? With Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde.
They're a million years old.
Yeah, and Taylor Rapp's on a 1-year deal. He probably won't be back. So I think I'm going to pivot to the safeties. And I'm going to go ahead and take Cam Kitchens. And he's your free safety of the future. If not, I don't know what Poyer and Micah Hyde's contract situations are. I think Poyer signed for 2 years.
Deals.
I think Poyer signed. Poyer could have signed for 2 years. I'm not sure, but if they moved on from either of them, I wouldn't be so surprised. Again, they're another team that's in salary cap hell. So I just love I love the center field and ball skills that Cam Kitchens offers. Listen, this is going to be high praise to the kid. Okay, he reminds when I watch him on film and what he does high pointing the ball and just the range that he shows. He's the closest thing to Ed Reed as a true free safety as I've seen in a while. Now he doesn't
Wow.
hit like Ed Reed.
No
He
one
might not
does. You're not
he might
allowed to.
not
That's
be
a fine.
he might not be as physical. But I mean the guy flies all over the field and has as much range as I've seen and the best ball skills from a safety that I've seen in a long time. I think he's gonna make whatever team he lands on happy. But to me the fit is here. I know wide receiver might be a bigger need to some, but again, I think you'll be able to secure yourself a good wide receiver in the second round. Cam Kitchens won't be there. He's the pick.
It's a great pick. Love it. Dallas Cowboys at 30. And I hate picking for the Cowgirls, but I'm gonna do it. And problem is there's not really like a sexy pick that like Jerry Jones can make here. Like you can like you're just gonna take Troy Franklin, like kind of a thing, right? And look, I get it because the only wide receiver that they have is CeeDee Lamb. Like that would be a pick. That's such a Jerry Jones pick. But I'm not Jerry Jones, so I'm gonna do the smart pick. I'm going to take Jordan Morgan here, the offensive tackle out of Arizona. I think you're about to lose Tyron Smith to free agency and obviously the fact that he can't stay healthy. And just you can find a place for Jordan Morgan, to play on the offensive line. It's the same kind of thing. I think he comes in and he can immediately play at your left tackle. He might not do it at like a super high level, but I think he can get there. And I think when you've got a guy who can get open as quickly as CeeDee Lamb and you've got Tony Pollard, who I think they should bring back, it's an interesting conversation to have there. The Cowboys, to me, are the most difficult team to predict what they're going to do because Jerry Jones is insane. And that's it.
And that does make a lot of sense. I like the pick. I like the fit. And listen, for as crazy as Jerry Jones is, he's made it a point over the past few drafts to really prioritize the trenches, right? Took a big old defensive lineman last year. Took Tyler Smith, who's turned out to be a phenomenal player the year before. So I like the rationale. I like the fit for Jordan Morgan here. And listen, some people are going to question if he can stay at tackle. I think he can stay at tackle. I definitely think he can stay at tackle. And at worst, all right, at worst you move him to one of the guards. And you bump Tyler Smith outside, or you play both him and Tyler Smith at your guards, and you're in good shape. So,
yep.
And that leads me up with San Francisco.
Yep.
And San Francisco, man, what a good team overall. They have probably the best roster in the NFL.
Yep.
I don't think that there's anything super pressing with this team. I think you can add some depth in the defensive backfield, right? I think you can add some depth along the offensive line, and it's probably the way I'm going to go. Colton McKivitz was just like this year, so you need a right tackle. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lock down probably one of the most athletic guys in this class, in Tyler Guyton out of Oklahoma. He's raw. He's definitely not going to be a perfect He's not a perfect plug and play prospect. I mean, but he's big, and the way that this guy moves is really something. It's a sight to be seen.
Very mad at you.
He's definitely raw. He's definitely needs some be coached up in his technique against the pass. But he's a huge man who just moves very well. To me, I think this is a perfect spot to kind of get him, and even if you don't play him right away, you develop him into a long-term tackle for quite a few years. So Guyton's it.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say Barton for half a second. I was like, you put him in a tackle, and then you didn't, and then I got sad. Guyton's a great pick. They need they what do you get for a team that's essentially perfect, right? It's hard to draft for them, but Guyton comes in, he can play right tackle probably immediately for them.
Yeah.
Baltimore, I don't think it's that hard. I'm just going to take Troy Franklin. That's it. It's another kind of relatively complete team when you're looking at the Baltimore Ravens. Bateman has not lived up to the first round hype and pedigree that he got, and I just don't see him ultimately as worth it in terms of that first round draft grade. Zay Flowers has been, in my opinion, probably the best wide receiver from last year's draft class. Like right now, he's just so freaking good. Odell Beckham Jr. is on a 1-year deal, and he's going to be gone. And Jackson has been slinging it, so give him people to continue to sling it to in Troy Franklin. And that's the pick.
Yeah. Listen, why don't we throw them 2 bonus picks? There's 2 teams that didn't pick in the first round.
Yeah.
Carolina and Cleveland. I'll take Carolina, who happens to be next. And then
Yep.
you could just assume for Cleveland, whoever, whenever they pick in the 50s. So Carolina's on the board. A complete offensive overhaul is needed. And I think it starts with weapons for Bryce Young. So give him a big target. Give him somebody reliable, that can help him. It definitely in the short and intermediary routes, and definitely be able to go up and get those 50-50 balls in a contested catch freak, and an athletic freak to say the least. And I'm going to keep Xavier Leggett close to home, and have him go from South Carolina over to Charlotte and become ideal weapon number 1 for Bryce Young.
It's a great pick. It's a great pick.
Cleveland picks in like the 50s, so just make do.
Middle of the second round. I'm looking and I'm trying to think here, and the reality is with the Browns are a really good team. They're relatively kind of complete. They don't need corners. They don't really need wide receivers. They don't really need help on the offense. They need health on the offensive line, but I don't think they need help at the offensive line. They're an interesting position overall, but a place where I think they could probably use an upgrade. Oh man,
interior defensive tackle. I think wide receiver makes sense. Interior defensive tackle.
I was looking there, like legitimately. I was thinking about taking one of my favorite players in the draft, if he's there still at this point, which would be Tavondre Sweat, and just putting him there right up in the middle, or even maybe like Chris Jenkins out of Michigan and plugging him in the middle. Both really, really good options. Yeah, let's just do it. Let's just take Chris Jenkins, pop him up there in the middle of that defense, and say, you know what, we're happy about that. And you move from there.
Yeah, you got your run stuffer. Absolutely, there's nothing wrong with that. I love that. I love that pick for them.
Yeah.
Listen.
If not, I was seriously taking a look at a guy like a Jalen Polk out of Washington.
Yeah.
Just to fit in something a little bit different.
I love Polk. I think Polk will be gone by the 50s. I think
probably.
Listen, I considered Polk for Buffalo at 29.
Wow. I didn't know that in that eye.
That's how much I think of him. But listen, that's our first round plus 2 bonus picks for you. So it made a lot of sense. I love playing GM, so I know that all my picks are right for sure. And listen, there's nothing too crazy. I don't think there's anything too outstanding outside of maybe Lab McConkey making it into the first round, and maybe Jackson Powers Johnson making it in the first round. I don't think
if you had to change one of my picks, which one would it be?
It would be McConkey without a doubt.
Okay.
I probably if I was going receiver, I probably would have looked at AD Mitchell.
I've done that pick before.
Maybe
I stand by
Xavier Worthy. They covet the speed there, and he's more of a vertical threat. I also really like what's going to happen. Tavondre Sweat makes sense to me there. You picked before me, so or like Byron Murphy, because what's going to happen in the middle there next year, right? Isn't Jones up? His contract's up.
I just don't have a first round grade on Byron Murphy.
Well, we think differently than him. I think
don't get me wrong. I love Byron Murphy.
Yeah.
I talked about the 2 Texas boys. I love the 2 Texas boys. I just don't have a first round grade on either one of them.
Yeah, no, he's my 13th ranked player in the class.
Jeez.
I definitely have a first round grade. I think he probably has a chance. If anybody, he has a chance to make the biggest impact as a rookie defender in this class.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's going to depend on where he lands. But anyhow, listen, guys. that's the draft. That's mock draft version 7.0. If you're keeping track. Again, give us your comments. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you didn't like. Tell Tigo he's a maniac for drafting Lad McConkey in the first round.
He's great.
Tell me I'm stupid for taking a center at 23. It's okay. The good thing is that there'll be plenty more of these to kind of switch it up as we go on.
Every week we get more of the draft order.
That's it, and we'll get more mock drafts out for you guys. Again, really appreciate it if you could like the video, leave a comment, hit the little bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel. It's Project Prospect at Dom C. We are the Draft Dodgers, and for my esteemed colleague Tigo, until next time, peace.